Welcome to the Wall of Soundtrack, a show where we discuss the music and soundtracks behind the very best TV shows and motion pictures. In this episode, we'll be discussing and analyzing the music and soundtrack behind Oliver Stone's epic Vietnam War drama motion picture, Platoon. Before we start this episode, and given the subject matter that we're about to discuss, I'd like to extend a special thank you to our Vietnam veterans and to our men and women in the armed forces. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. We appreciate your service, sacrifice, courage, and commitment to protecting our freedoms and security so we can live in this great country. Once again, thank you for your service. Platoon is a Vietnam War drama film that was written and directed by Oliver Stone and released in 1986. The film is a depiction of some of Oliver Stone's experiences as a U.S. Army infantryman on combat duty in Vietnam. Oliver Stone is represented in the film by the character Chris Taylor, played by Charlie Sheen. Platoon's cast included a group of renowned actors and upcoming stars who played the following characters: Johnny Depp as Lerner, Charlie Sheen as Chris Taylor, Willem Dafoe as Sergeant Elias, Tom Berenger as Staff Sergeant Bob Barnes, John C. McGinley as Sergeant O'Neill, Forrest Whitaker as Big Harold, Kevin Dillon as Bunny, and Keith David as King. The film would go on to win 4 Academy Awards in 1987 for Best Director, Best Picture, Best Sound, and Best Editing, and had a profound impact on audiences within the U.S. and across the globe, with its depiction of the Vietnam veterans' experience, heroism, and the brutalities of war. My returning guest is not only a good friend of mine, but he's a columnist for the entertainment, commentary, and review website Action A Go-Go. Cy Shackelford is a fan of music, movies, and comic books. You can read his articles on the Action A Go-Go website, www.actionagogo.com. You can also follow him on Twitter. His Twitter handle is @Shack_House83. Here's my discussion with Cy on the music and soundtrack behind the Vietnam War drama film, Platoon. All right, Cy, thanks for joining me again.
Oh, no doubt. A pleasure to be here, Andrew. Thank you.
So what's new with Action A Go-Go, man?
We're going to print once again. We're having our magazine printed out, and this time we were focusing on women in action, like for example, Michelle Rodriguez in the Fast and Furious movies. I did a piece on certain female comic book characters, like how some of the human characters are tougher than the superpowered female characters. And we're also doing like on the fly YouTube reviews. Like me and the managing editor of Action A Go-Go, Troy Jeffrey Allen, we saw Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado last night, and he proposed that we just do like after no fluff included after viewing review of the movie. We plan on doing that once we see the film again, because I want to fill in the blanks for what I missed last night.
Yeah, I really liked it. I saw it last night as well, and I was not disappointed. The continuity was great. A lot of the same characters were in the movie and included, and especially that special operative guy that I forget his name, but he was in Burn Notice. That actor, he was the lead in Burn Notice, but I forget his name.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it. Yeah. But great film, loved it. Lots of action, lots of suspense.
Yeah, they said I don't want to give any spoilers, but they said early on that Taylor Sheridan, the writer of the film, he said the sequel is going to make the violence and action in the first film look like a cartoon, and the first 10 minutes of this film, it lived up to that.
Definitely. I mean, lots of action, lots of like whoa moments.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and it's great that they brought back the writer from the original film. I think it just definitely added a lot of quality to the film.
It did. Even if they don't have the same cinematographer or director, that didn't detract from its quality.
And the cinematography was even great. Like
It
those big
was.
wide shots over Mexico with the helicopters, the Blackhawks, and then
Those were
the
beautiful.
the overhead shots of the convoy brought back a lot of that feel of the first film.
As did the music that they used too when they did those wide shots. Johan Johansson, he's dead now. Actually, he died recently,
Oh,
and they
okay.
have an in memoriam of for him at the ending credits of the film.
Okay. Yeah, he did a great job on the first film score.
Yes, he did.
What else have you seen? Are you going to go see the new Ant-Man
Yes,
film that's coming up?
I plan on seeing it the next Friday. Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah, what did you think about that? You think it's going to be good or
I think so, and here's why. Because we've had two movies come out from Marvel Studios this year, both of which were ultra mega critical and commercial successes: the Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. While Black Panther made a lot of good social points that brought every black person in America to the theater, even those who don't even get down with comics like that, Avengers brought everybody else along with it too, and that had a lot of serious tones to it, especially with the cliffhanger left at the end. Ant-Man, as they showed in the first film, the first Ant-Man film from 2015, they showed it's a real fun film. And they showed that they slightly don't take themselves that seriously. Maybe not to the extent that Deadpool does, but enough to still remain within continuity and still please audiences, you know?
I did see that in a lot in the previews for the Ant-Man film that there's a lot more humor. It seems like that they're including in these Marvel movies. I think that's great because it adds a different element to the genre and kind of the tone of the film.
It does. Like the Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok, that came out last year. Yeah, that one. Up until that one, I wasn't a big fan of Thor. Thor was my least favorite franchise of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. But the third one, it had a big modicum of humor that I think it needed. It took away from the more darker tone of the previous two films of the series. Yeah, it gave it the kick in the ass it needed, I thought.
Yeah. Did you see the preview for the Biggie film, the Biggie Smalls film that's going to come out?
The one with Johnny Depp as the lead investigator? Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that.
What do you think about that? I think that looks really interesting.
I'm interested in seeing it because as a fan of Johnny Depp, I mean, despite his troubles or despite his like lack of success in the movie theaters in the past few years or whatever, he's still a fan favorite to me. So I think he's gonna come with it.
Yeah, he usually brings his A game for every film, and I mean, I love his films as well. I love Blow. I
Blow's
love
good. I love Black Mass, Blow, Edward Scissorhands,
yeah. He's super, and he's in the
and
film that we're going
we're
to
gonna
talk
talk
about
about
today.
yes, yeah.
So, or the soundtrack that or the film that we're going to talk about today.
As is Forrest Whitaker, who's also in the
Also in this film as well today. So, wow, that's a great coincidence. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. And there's been a lot of controversy behind that whole that murder of Biggie Smalls, and then of course the Tupac, the East West feud.
and they had on I forget on which channel exactly, but like a mini series in which Jimmy Simpson he plays the lead cop investigating the deaths of both Biggie and Pac. I didn't get to see the whole thing though, but I guess you're gonna try it on the big screen now with Johnny Depp and Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I think I'll definitely go out and see it as well. So I was thinking we could jump into the topic of discussion today, the soundtrack for Platoon.
Let's dive right in. Best war movie ever.
It's definitely up there for me. I mean, has a special place in my heart because I remember my father kind of watching the movie watching the movie and then hearing the soundtrack that my dad would play a lot, on his stereos. It just brings back great memories for me. And ended up watching the film later on, a few years later, and it was just blown away by this film. I mean, it's just like they don't pull any punches. It's right in your face. It's almost kind of, I don't want to say it's a guerrilla like war film, but it almost kind of is. I mean,
It is guerrilla warfare, especially the jungle battle scenes and whatnot. And the last scene at the end, it kind of made it unclear, like who's the real enemy out here. Now you're in the dark. Barnes is out shooting people and whatnot. And he's going at Taylor. Everybody's just frenzied, like bloodthirsty.
yeah, this film chronicles a lot of the experiences that Oliver Stone had when himself he served in Vietnam as well. He served in the army.
He saw combat when he was there. He was an infantryman.
He was there, I think, in 1967, and he was in, pretty similar location near the border of Cambodia.
Yeah,
fighting against the NVA.
he said that was based on a real battle that he was there for.
Yeah.
And that, I think that lends to the movie's authenticity. That gives it its authenticity, that it was written and directed by a guy who was actually there and served.
Yeah. And I think for the younger generations as well, it brings it's a history lesson, you know, it's and captures a lot of the emotion and I guess emotion of the time, and the feelings that the soldiers had of the war, and
some liked it, some hated it and wanted to go home.
yeah, I mean, Barnes almost seemed like he liked the war, right? I mean, he was like, he wanted to go. He'd been shot 6 times and had seven times. Yeah. Sorry,
and he had been there for 4 years at that point. Yeah, they mentioned that in the film, if not the book. I got the novelization for it at home, but he got injured when he got that eye injury, that facial injury. When he got out of the hospital, he just went right back for another tour, and it's like, you must not have anything else to go to.
Yeah, he's just like, I guess he was, you know, it's that feeling that veterans get where they want to go back. You know, it's like the rush.
Like the Hurt Locker, which James Cameron dubbed as this generation's Platoon.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this movie was made in 1986, and
it was Christmas Day of '86.
Yeah, what a great time, great year, because I was born in 1986. So, but also a great soundtrack. The opening title sequence is done. It's a piece by Samuel Barber called Adagio for strings, and it's really emotional. I mean, when you hear this song, a lot of critics say that it's hard to keep a dry eye when you hear this song because it just evokes a lot of emotion out of everybody.
It's like the archetype for like strings, like when strings and you start crying. It's like that's the first thing people think of when they think of like emotional scenes. So let me get my violin and play Adagio for strings.
Yeah, and the opening of this movie, essentially you have the opening title and credit sequence. It's a black screen and you see that quote. It's "Rejoice, young man, in thy youth." It's a quote from the Bible.
Yeah.
Essentially, which means, you know, enjoy life, enjoy your youth.
Especially these soldiers, the protagonists, Chris Taylor, played by Charlie Sheen. Yeah, who's basically a stand-in for Oliver Stone himself in the film. Chris comes in there all wide-eyed, young, idealistic, and because he basically volunteered, he wasn't drafted, but he has no idea what he's getting himself into, because by the end of it, he may have came there as a boy, but he left there as an old man.
Yep, and to give the audience a little bit of context of the scene and what's happening is there's a cargo plane that's pulling up on a runway. It's kicking up a lot of dust. The back of the cargo plane opens up. Taylor walks out of the plane with other newly arrived GIs, and a lot of these guys would be sent back in, you know, be sent into these areas where there were heavy losses. So these guys were essentially, you know, in this scene, Taylor's a replacement. He's going in to replace some of the casualties. So when he's walking out of the back of the plane, he sees the casualties. He sees the dead bodies that
being carried out. Yeah,
yeah, and that's why I love this film so much, because it just hits you so quickly. I mean, they don't even take one second. I mean, it's like the movie opens and it's like, bam, there you go. Like, whoa.
You see the dead bodies, and amidst the backdrop for Adagio for strings, you also see that the soldiers giving him the 1,000-yard stares.
Yeah.
That's how traumatized they are. It's like, wow, they must have seen a lot.
Yeah, and then you have that cross dolly shot where Taylor's walking, and him and Gardner are walking down the runway, and then you see the veterans, you know, some of them look shell-shocked, some of them look traumatized from the action that they've seen.
Yeah, the 1,000-yard stare, yeah.
Yeah, and then that one guy, I always remember that line. He's like, "You're gonna love the Nam for fucking ever," you know. And it's like, there's so many good quotes in this movie, or memorable quotes.
Very.
But this music, yeah, again, and it appears in several other places in the latter parts of the film.
Yes, it does. It does. Pivotal scenes, yeah.
But this piece is like, whenever I hear this piece, I think of this movie. I always associate it with Platoon.
And it's funny you mentioned that, what you associate with Platoon, because I saw behind the scenes, or a retrospective of Platoon from what's it called, the 25th anniversary Blu-ray for it. They had Charlie Sheen, Tom Berenger, Johnny Depp, Willem Dafoe. And Sheen was like, whenever I smoke, I think of Platoon. And that's when they all light up cigarettes, all the ones who were smokers in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was in that war, I'd be smoking too. You know, it's so much stress. And just having to keep it together. Mm-hmm. But, so yeah, then I guess we'll jump to the next song here. It's Jefferson Airplane. The song's titled White Rabbit, and I feel like this is almost like the quintessential
drug song,
or Vietnam like '60s song.
I'm surprised they didn't have any Creedence Clearwater songs in here. Because what's it called? I mean, most Vietnam movies we've seen, like Forrest Gump, or even what's it called? I think Apocalypse Now. They even had a Creedence Clearwater song, like Green River or something, or Fortunate Son.
Yeah. I'm surprised they left one of those songs out, because that's another staple of Vietnam movies. But this is another great pick, and essentially to give some more context to the audience about the scene. So Taylor, King, and I forget the other guy. Is it Lance?
The blonde dude?
The blonde guy.
Yeah, Crawford.
Crawford,
played
yeah.
by Chris Peterson.
Yep, they are issued
latrine duty.
Latrine duty.
Yeah.
So they essentially have to go clean the toilets and
bury shit all day long. Basically,
or light it. I think they light it on fire with kerosene or something. But they're all bitching about it and philosophizing as well.
Yeah, talking about like what led them to Vietnam and how many days they got left. Yeah. What they plan on doing, this wishful thinking. And King, when he learns why Taylor is there, how he volunteered, he kind of makes fun of him, saying, "Oh, you a crusader, huh?"
Yeah, and then King kind of introduces him to the heads. The heads, yeah.
Basically, Sergeant Elias, played by Willem Dafoe, that's his squad mostly. They're the ones that actually unwind by listening to music, do drugs, drink, just have a good time with each other.
Yeah, and I love that shot. There's like a sunset shot where you see the outline of Taylor, and he's smoking that joint, and it's just like it fits so perfectly with the song, because the song is about drug use, and
and that's what they all, when they go down in that foxhole bunker and whatnot. Yeah, and they got decorations in there with the song playing, and they're all stoned. And here's another thing about that scene too. Willem Dafoe said that they actually, all the men in that scene, they really did get high right before it, right, to get into character.
Yeah, keeping it authentic, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. They took so long in getting the scene, the stage ready, the setup ready, that by the time they were ready, the high had worn off, and they were all tired as hell. They didn't even feel like doing it no more.
Surprised they got that scene shot. It looked like they still did a really, really good job, despite the lack of the high wearing off, And
it's Chris's like introduction to like, what's it called, like, he got his mind freed in a way. Like when he took that hit when Elias blew the smoke in the shotgun.
He was shotgunning the marijuana. Yeah.
I was like, yo, and Sheen, that's probably no stranger to him too, considering his known drug use.
Yeah, he's a wild man, and that term shotgunning made sense to me. I never like understood it until or at least it gave me a little bit more context of what that meant when I saw that scene, and he actually like pulls out the shotgun and and blows the smoke down the barrel,
like when Chappelle did it in Chappelle's Show with that baby with like the old dweets, shotgun little buddy.
Gotta love Chappelle, right?
No doubt.
So in this, they go down to the bunker, and we start to learn in Vietnam there was heavy drug use, and this was a coping mechanism because of the horrors that a lot of the GIs would witness, and it kind of kept them sane at the same time, kept them from going nuts and killing innocent people. So
like you see that frequently throughout the film, really, like even the soldiers in the platoon, the titular platoon, you see them taking heroin off the dead bodies of the Viet Cong and smoking joints throughout the film, even when they're out there in the field. And what else was it? And then that contrasts to the other half of the platoon that doesn't even get down with drug use or anything. It's like a mixed bag of like white rednecks and black men from small southern towns.
Yeah, you can see the division between the platoon there, because there's the division of GIs in the platoon that don't consume drugs, then there's the heads, which is another group of the platoon that do. So it's kind of, I don't want to say it's conservative versus a conservative and a liberal side, but I mean I guess you can kind of look at it in that way.
Especially with the song that was playing in the background, where the other half, where Barnes, his half of the group is introduced, how they get down at it with some R&R.
Yeah. So when they go down, to get back to that scene we were talking about, and when they go down to the bunker, you hear that song, Jefferson Airplane, White White
Rabbit,
Rabbit, and then
yeah.
it transitions to the next song, which is Smokey Robinson. I think the song is called Tracks of My Tears.
Yes.
And
After Taylor's been like fully indoctrinated into the group.
yeah, he's a member of the Heads, and everyone's having a good time. They're dancing, they're
Unwinding, yeah.
unwinding. And I was listening to the behind the scenes part, or like function, or like, the behind the scenes option for the Platoon DVD, and Oliver Stone was talking about he discovered a lot of music when he was in Vietnam. He discovered a lot of Motown, a lot of like blues, he discovered the Doors in Vietnam. Like, so they would just go down to the bunker and listen to a lot of music.
And you would think that he would already been exposed to that, considering he's a New York City guy, which is a melting pot of the world. Well, actually, he was raised between New York and Connecticut, so it was kind of, I guess he didn't kind of get as much exposure as I would have imagined.
Yeah.
Until Nam.
And then of course he would go on to make, a Doors movie.
Oh yeah, he
later
did.
on
Yeah.
down the road. That movie, I'll tell you what, will make you not want to take drugs. I had nightmares after seeing that movie.
Yeah, I remember that movie vividly.
Yeah. So this song, when you hear it, the lyrics are are, I believe, Smokey Robinson did this song, and I believe he was probably writing about
A breakup.
A breakup, yeah. I need you outside, I'm masquerading. Those are some of the lyrics. Inside, my hope is failing, just a clown. Oh yeah.
But it kind of like it tested like the newfound bond that Chris now has with his group too.
Yeah, definitely. And then to go back to the scene again, you have a transition to the other side of the platoon, which is a little bit more conservative, and is listening to a country music song by Merle Haggard called "Ogie from Muskogee." And the first part of the song we hear is, "We don't smoke marijuana."
Yeah.
So you get like both extremes, right? I think I kind of think it's a little bit of humor that Stone put in there. I mean, I always laugh when I hear it.
I mean, it's probably true. Like, there may have been one group over there that was playing that song as a way of just demonstrating that they're not going to get down with the other group that does drugs and drinks in order to cope.
Yeah. And that scene is when Bunny is talking to Junior.
What the hell is everybody, man? They're getting high, that's what.
Yeah, and I gotta love Kevin Dillon, man. He's just like, and I always think of Johnny Drama from Entourage,
Some role he's most known for. Yeah, looking at him in Platoon, it's like, you were a 19-year-old kid back then.
Yeah, and he's like this Irish, like, 20-something-year-old, or probably not even, I don't know, like 19 maybe. I don't.
And ain't no telling where he's from either. It's like a lot of them, they didn't give much background on them, even in the book.
Yeah.
Like Bunny, he's a stone cold killer though.
Yeah, he's welding that shotgun, and
oh yeah, he's surgical with the shotgun, and he's like one of the ones that we said how they were affected by Nam, like how some people didn't like it, some people wanted to go home, but Bunny, he liked it there.
Yeah, and you see that later in the film. He has
he admits it when he talks to Junior.
He has a little monologue there where he talks about how, nobody messes with him in Vietnam. And
right, yeah.
He's not afraid of dying because, hey, man, you don't feel it anyways.
I bet he wasn't thinking that when he actually did get killed.
Yeah, he gets it in the end of the movie. I'll tell you what. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, but he was fighting right before that in the foxhole with a shotgun, shooting at people, making explosions. Like, yo, you crazy, but I need you on my team.
Yeah, and the thing that's really the thing I really love about this movie, not to go on a tangent here, but is the three dimensionality of the characters. Bunny's he's a warrior, but you see him just do awful things. I mean, you see him kill that innocent villager.
Yeah,
and he's just
shot that pig.
Yeah, he shoots the pig. And then Junior, he's a warrior too, but
He a warrior, he a coward.
I don't. Well, maybe that. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you just see him talk about. I think it's a scene where they're talking about. It's with Junior and Forrest Big Harold.
Yeah, Big Harold, Sergeant Warren.
Yeah, they're all talking about how things are getting out of hand.
It's after the village, right?
Right, it's after the village massacre, and he's like, things are getting just so out of hand, man. And I don't know, but he's like, there's no Christian like cutting off heads and stuff, you know. He's like, it's getting totally out of hand.
And I says like, here's the thing: is right before then he was part of the group that was trying to rape some Vietnamese girl. It's like, what are you talking about, out of hand?
Yeah, it's like there's that three-dimensionality factor, right? Like he's saying that like things are getting out of hand, but then he's doing, he's doing these like he's raping, the one of the young girls in the village.
He's oblivious to how much of a hypocrite he is, but that's part of being a human being too. That three-dimensionality.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this song, Merle Haggard, Ogie from Muskogee, definitely a song about, or a critique on, hippies and beatniks and drug use.
Hippie culture, yeah. Even the style of dress and their hairstyle, yeah.
Yeah, the lyrics, we don't smoke marijuana in Muskogee, we don't take our trips on LSD, we don't bum our draft cards down on Main Street, we are living right. We are being free.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it fits well with Bunny's character and Barnes. They're kind of like, I mean, they drink, but they don't do drugs.
They don't do drugs, nothing like that. Yeah, Barnes in the book and in the deleted scenes, he's from Hill Country in Tennessee, which kind of fits him. Fits with the song.
Did you ever see the movie Heaven and Earth with Oliver
the third
Stone?
Oliver Stone.
I always wonder if Barnes' character is based on that character, like Tommy Lee Jones' character in Heaven and Earth, like, or if there's some sort of like resemblance, because Oliver Stone was saying that Barnes, the real Barnes, I guess, married a Japanese girl, and then he went back to, he had been injured, he was shot in the head, and then
went back to Nam.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, they included something like that in the book.
Yeah.
Like a variation of that story. And also Stone, he did say that, what's it called? The guy, the real Sergeant O'Neill, and that he knew in his platoon, he was really that brutal to him, like making him do latrine duty and that kind of stuff. He said, Sergeant O'Neill hated me for some reason.
Yeah, played by John C. McGinley. He's such a jerk. You just like throughout the whole movie, you just hate this guy.
A jerk and a coward, but he gets what he deserves at the end.
Yeah, he thinks he's going to get out, and then he ends up taking...
You should have said you were injured. Don't say you're fine.
Yeah. Dale Dye coming up. He's like, that's great, because you
got second platoon.
Yeah, you got second platoon.
Yes, sir.
You just see the look of terror on his face. So
you got Barnes' job. You staying in Nam.
Yeah. So then we'll transition to the next song here, or not song, but next piece. This is The Village. I believe it's The Village Massacre.
When they burn the village, right when it starts,
yeah. So Adagio for strings is played again by Samuel Barber, and
at this point the platoon is really split right down the middle because of Barnes' actions.
And this scene really mimicked the Miley massacre, which happened, which was the actual massacre. It was that actual massacre which happened in Vietnam, where a lot of innocent Vietnamese villagers were executed by the U.S. military.
Yeah, they thought they were hiding some of the rebels in there, but they had no proof of it beyond all the food that they had.
And in the behind the scenes portion of Platoon, Stone talks about this, where this was a common frustration that they would experience with the villagers, because they wanted to treat them well, but then they would find out that they were supporting the NVA and harboring weapons and food for them.
Yeah.
So they would just get frustrated,
they lost some of their men too, so they want to take it out on somebody.
Yeah, I mean, to give some more context for the audience here, before this scene, Manny, who is on flank patrol for the platoon, gets captured by, it must have been Viet Cong.
Yeah.
And they essentially, I think peg him. They kill him, but they
cut his throat and leave him. They basically leave him on display.
Yeah.
And before that, they were on patrol and they found like a Vietnamese bunker, and two of the soldiers, Sanderson, played by J. Adam Glover, and Sal, played by Richard Edson. Yeah, both of them get blown up, and Sanderson's arms are blown off, and you see him just limping out, like hobbling out of the platoon right before he falls over dead with no arms.
Yeah, that scene is extremely disturbing. I remember seeing that. I was like, whoa, And again, like I said, this movie just hits you, with the gore and violence of the Vietnamese War, and it also kind of introduces you to the fact that there were booby traps as well. And I think that's pretty similar to what you see in you would see in like Iraq with the IEDs going off and even booby traps. When Marines would go into buildings in Fallujah, they would have to check for booby traps. Sometimes there'd be trip wires and
and check from a distance as well too to see if anybody is setting something off that the person inside the building can't see.
Yeah. So yeah, you really see Barnes's rage. You see that he's affected by these losses, losing his troops. He's sitting there smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
And then Chris Taylor walks up and he sees him. So, moving back to the scene that we were talking about in the village, there's a lot of rage building up. There were a ton of rage building up.
Even in the protagonist, Chris, I mean, it overtakes him temporarily, too.
Yeah, you see him start shooting at the one
dance, motherfucker!
Yeah, he just loses it, and then Bunny kills that.
Just beats him to death with the butt of the shotgun.
Yeah. I was like, whoa.
And even O'Neill, who was the sergeant in charge right at the moment, right in that scene, he was like, Bunny, we leave right now. Nobody saw a fucking thing.
Yeah, you just see the lack of leadership from O'Neill.
Yeah. I was like, how did you ever make sergeant, by the way? I mean, the lieutenant, he's had the least, he's the one officer in the platoon who's had the least time. And he's inexperienced and kind of a coward as well, too, based on what we've seen. But I'm like, O'Neill, you should just said something right there. Stop your men from killing the dude.
Yeah, just step up and just pull him out of there. But you just see the lack of leadership. And, O'Neill's a coward, and he's just morally inept.
Inept, yeah. He sucks up the Barnes every chance he gets.
Yep. And then you see them blowing up the weapons in place, and then you see the execution of that one lady.
One lady at Barnes, the lady she just annoyed Barnes. She that's why he shot her.
Yeah, he just shoots her in the head, and that scene where you're just like, what just happened?
Even Johnny Depp's character, when she falls right in front of him dead, even he looks at her, it's like he wasn't even expecting it. Like it just came, like it was almost ad-libbed.
Yeah, you just feel the air kind of come out of the. If you're watching a movie, I remember watching it with friends, and you just feel the air kind of be sucked out of the room after that scene. You're like, what?
What the hell? Yeah.
Yeah, and then Elias shows up.
Oh yeah, he was left behind at one point to guard the perimeter, the bunker where they were at. Yes, he was like, and you really thought Barnes was going to kill the girl's daughter next, the little girl that keeps crying over her dead mother's body. Thought Barnes was like, I cock her down, VC. And then you hear Elias with Barnes and Crawford walking behind him. It's like, okay, Elias, he's going to do something about this.
Now it's going down.
Yeah.
Now it's going down.
Like, you ain't the firing squad, you piece of shit.
Yeah, that, and then they end up, brawling, and you see it's great cinematography, because when they're fighting, they're kind of fighting in the dust, and you see the two divisions of the platoon.
Yeah.
One sides with Barnes, and the other side is with Elias.
Yeah, and each side, members on each side are instigating. They're kind of like, kick his ass, Elias, kick his ass, Barnes. And others are really trying to stop it and keep order.
And then the loser lieutenant steps in, and he's like, finally starts to show some leadership.
But here's the thing, it wasn't even leadership. He says, Captain says to torch the place, you hear? Oh, the captain says, not you.
Yeah.
But you hear Elias call him out, Lieutenant, why the fuck did you do something? What are you talking about?
He's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Elias.
It's like, I'm like, you coward.
Yeah, that part where, I guess retribution comes later when he gets it, but.
Yeah, my dad and my uncle, they were both in the Army at the time, and my uncle, he was in Vietnam. He made it to staff sergeant in his platoon, and he told me that it was common practice back then that they take some greenhorn lieutenant out of West Point Academy who never had no field experience, just send a lieutenant out to Vietnam to give the platoon proper supervision. They said they do that frequently, and it led to a lot of mismanagement.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and you see that kind of struggle in the film where Barnes and the lieutenant are kind of struggling of who manages the platoon. I mean, traditionally, the lieutenant's in charge of the platoon, but the sergeants usually run the operations side of it.
But in this case, what's it called? The sergeants, O'Neill, Warren, Elias, and Barnes, they got more experience than the lieutenant does. So people look to them.
And one question for me, and I always wondered, was Barnes like higher rank sergeant than Elias, or? Yeah,
technically yes. I mean, they're all NCOs. I mean, Barnes, he's a staff sergeant, so his pay grade is above Elias, Warren, and O'Neill, who are all buck sergeants.
Okay.
If you look at the film, The three of them, they just got like 3 stripes in their uniform for sergeant, while Barnes, he's got the staff sergeant, 3 stripes and a U on his uniform.
Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah, I was always wondering. Yeah, and then so you hear the adagio for strings piece again while they're leaving. They're kind of herding the villagers out, and you have that big, wide, famous shot of the whole entire village pretty much on fire.
While the platoon men are marching out like a single file line, and the kids are on their shoulders.
Yeah, and you see the one part that also stuck out to me is Bunny was taking pictures like it was like this was like a tourist visit or something, which I thought was kind of messed up.
Yeah, it's like this is sociopath. Yeah,
he's like, look at this, It's like, why would you take a picture, man? I think you're right. I think he's a sociopath. But that piece I think hit a lot of people. It hit me when I saw it. It's very emotional. You're seeing them herding the villagers out almost like they're animals.
Basically, yeah. It's like, where are you going to send them now, basically? You just burn their home?
Yeah.
And kill their animals? They're farmers, dude. They're not... You got no proof they're harboring nobody.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they... all they had were the guns, but the guns and the food, but...
The rice, yeah.
You just never know, though, right? It's like maybe they were forced to storm them, and they didn't want to be allegiant to the NVA,
Right, yeah.
So it's nothing's black or white, right? It's complicated.
Gray. It's very gray area.
Very gray. Yeah, I agree. So the next song or the next piece here is composed by the soundtrack composer Georges Zelleroux, and he's a French composer. And this is the scene where Barnes shoots Elias, and probably one of the biggest scenes in the entire movie.
It was very tense. You knew it was going to come to this after the village massacre, and the way Barnes and Elias presented themselves in front of the captain about the events, and how the captain promised that if he finds out that there really was a killing, that there would be a court-martial. And Barnes knows that he'd be in trouble for that, so the only way to keep that from happening is to get rid of his lead accuser.
And Barnes is a military man. He cares about rank. He cares about his career. So you see that point in the scene where he's having a cigarette, and Bunny and O'Neill start talking to him. He's like, "So what are you gonna do about this, Barnes?" And he's sitting there having a cigarette, and he's thinking about it. He's kind of working it through his mind.
And yeah, it capped off with Bunny saying somebody ought to frag Elias, and Barnes probably thinking in his mind, that's not a bad idea.
Exactly. And fragging was a practice that was often happened in Vietnam, where if there were disagreements within the platoon, they would often take out the lieutenant. There would be friendly fire, and they would end up taking out one of their own, like
on purpose. Yeah, make it look like it was friendly fire. Yeah,
yeah, because friendly fire was something that happened quite frequently in Vietnam, and you see that in that first scene. That first ambush scene in the movie where O'Neill throws that grenade and Tex is hit by...
Yeah, and his hand is blown off, yeah.
Yeah, Tex is hit, and then Taylor's hit as well. He has a little flesh wound, on his neck.
Right.
But that all happened because
grenades
O'Neill...
and shrapnel. And O'Neill, he just
threw it.
He just threw it. It was like cowardly, just threw it just to get rid of it. Not he was aiming at nobody at all.
Yeah, just another reason to hate his character, right?
Oh, yeah.
But so I guess that's a little bit of context behind the fragging portion, and that happened, and that's why I think this movie's so great, because it captures like a lot of historical
accuracies.
Yeah, a lot of it's just it's so real. It just hits you,
It does.
So yeah, and then we transition to one of the most famous scenes in the movie.
Oh yeah,
Elias's death. So they're pulling out of that church area, I guess, where they got ambushed.
Yeah, the dust off point, where they're going to take off. They got mostly everybody, the dead bodies and the injured people out. But then when they're high up in the air, Taylor, he catches a glimpse of Elias running and yells out, "They got Elias!"
Yeah.
The lieutenant's like, "What? Get back down there!" And Barnes is like, "What? I thought I killed him."
Yeah, and I probably should have provided a little bit more detail of that scene where...
Yeah, before that, when Barnes shoots Elias, we figured that Elias was dead, and that we took Barnes' word for it when he ran into Taylor a few miles up in the jungle. Taylor's like, "Wait a minute, Elias is dead?" "Yeah, he's dead. A few clicks up north. He's dead. Now get over it. Let's go."
Yeah, And when he shoots when Barnes shoots Elias, you hear that piece by Georges Delerue. It's that kind of like Japanese sounding piece where
It kind of fits the jungle. It fits the sweat and the heat of the jungle and the intensity of it.
yeah,
Perfectly.
it's like you hear like I guess it's like a flute. It's
Like,
some sort of
no.
yeah. It's like that instrumental, and it adds like so much suspense to that scene, and you see Barnes, like they close up on Barnes's eyes,
Yeah.
and then you see Elias's reaction, and then you
When he
just
realized
know,
what's going to happen.
he
Yeah.
realizes that Barnes is going to take him out,
Yeah.
and I don't think we knew that initially. I mean, you knew that Barnes was going to handle it somehow, but you didn't think he was going to kill him, right?
Right. When you think he's about to lower his weapon, when he sees Elias give the friendly smile,
yeah,
it's like, oh my goodness, Elias, get out of there. Get out of there. He's going to shoot you, dude.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he does like 3 times.
3 times, and then we go back to the scene that we were talking about with the Adagio for strings portion, the most famous scene where it's an overhead shot, and we see the Viet Cong chasing Elias after he's been shot 3 times, and we find out that he has not died.
He has not died. He's still running away, but he's still getting shot to shit, and it's in slow motion. The strings are playing in the background, and the helicopter, his unit's helicopter is trying to take out whoever they can on the ground, but it's not working. It's Elias. He's outnumbered.
Yeah, and they're trying to provide cover fire from the
air. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you hear the lieutenant goes,
back down
there. Yeah, and then you
There's
see
one left in the deck.
Yeah, and then you see him like fall to his knees, and it's that famous shot, which eventually became the poster of the film for the film.
Puts his hands in the air like a Christ-like figure.
Yeah,
before he falls to the ground dead, and the helicopter takes off.
And you hear the adagio piece playing in the background, which adds so much emotion, and
that's what got the film the Best Picture Oscar right there.
Yeah, that scene, and then you see that, which I think it's kind of an odd shot, but it works so well. Is that drooping palm tree, like the palm tree with the leaves kind of drooped over it, kind of symbolizing the death.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, that's a good point, Andrew. It does.
And that always hit me like so much. It was I thought it was so out of place, but then I kind of looked at it a little bit deeper, and I was like, whoa, that's
good. That's good. That's a good visual imagery right there. It is.
And I guess kind of gives a lot of kudos to the director of photography, Bob Richardson, which he had done a bunch of different films with Oliver Stone, JFK. He had done Wall Street, and they worked together quite frequently. But
and in that same scene too, when the adagio for strings is dying out, you see like Taylor.
They make eye contact.
He looks at Barnes. He looks at Barnes pissed off, like, you lied to me, and you the one that tried to shoot him. And Barnes, he looks right back at him and knows, and then just turns back to go back to his business, like all casually and whatnot. It's like you motherfucker. I hope you get got.
Yeah, Barnes is a total psycho, and that scar that he has just creeps me out every single time. I mean, you got to give props to the movie too, because it was made in 1986. The makeup was incredible.
Oh yeah,
Barnes.
That scar looked real.
Yeah, it looks so real, and you just know that Barnes is a total psycho.
Oh yes, he did. And they also, like we said, they use adagio for strings in this scene as well. But the next time they use it is in like the final scene and the ending credits as well too, after the final battle, which was very wow. I used to, on a side note, when I was a kid, when this movie used to come on HBO, when I was a kid, I couldn't wait for the final battle. I used to be down in my parents' basement, no one around. I'm like, okay, just pantomiming, having a toy gun, pantomiming all the battle scenes in there, and yelling out. My parents like, what are you doing downstairs? I'm like, you interrupting me now. I can't get back into it.
That scene is so intense, and you feel the suspense and the build up. There's that scene where I believe it's Dale Dye who's the captain.
Yeah.
And he's on the radio, and you know that the ambush team had gone out before to try to find that NVA regiment.
Yeah.
And you hear him on the radio, and you
if you can't talk, son. If you can't talk, son, try to press a button. Try to hear me.
Yeah, and you just hear that they're being overrun. They're just being taken out. So you know that they're coming, in full force. They're on their way. And I was listening to the behind the scenes like commentary from Oliver Stone, and he thought he was like, I don't think I did a really good job here. He's like, because I wanted this scene to be scarier with the lighting. He wanted it to be dark.
Yeah.
But he's like, we just ran out of time, so we had to shoot this scene. I remember when I watched the scene for the first time, it scared me. I was like, whoa, like this is like, you just hear him, you hear the radio. The sounds of the gunshots on over the radio, and you know that they're dead. They've been taken out. Like the GIs are dead.
The only part of that whole scene, the whole battle scene that scared me was when Taylor and Barnes encounter each other, and Barnes knocks Taylor down. It's like he's about to hit him with the axe.
The shovel, yeah.
Yeah, and Taylor's like, no!
And you see like the red
in Barnes' eyes, yeah. And the airstrike coming up above, and it like the light kind of shines off of Taylor a little bit as he's like screaming no.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell? Is Barnes going to do it? And the bombs happen, and everything just goes white.
Yeah, that F-4 Phantom comes in and just lays all the bombs down on their position.
Oh yeah, Captain Harris, they'll die. He called for that. It's like they're all in the area. The only way to get them is to take us all out.
That radio conversation with the pilot always gets me. He's like, for the record, it's my call. He's like, drop all
in my perimeter.
It's a lovely fucking war.
Bravo 6 out.
That is one of the more memorable lines too. Yeah, with Dale die. He's like lovely fucking war. But
and when he punks the lieutenant too, is like what's it called? Be advised, we've got zips all on the perimeter. You will hold in place and you will fight. That means you, Lieutenant. Bravo 6 out.
And he's like, God damn it, Lieutenant. There's nowhere to pull back to.
We got zips all on the perimeter.
That's why Dale Dye is like, he was just a great technical advisor for the film, and actually, a great actor too in the film. But I think he brings a lot to it. I mean, he was
a military guy. He was in Outbreak as well too, where he kept getting chewed up by Donald Sutherland's character.
Yeah, and he was a Marine. He served in Vietnam, so I think it just brings a lot to the film and made another reason why it was so great.
Yeah, they needed a good technical advisor on screen. Stone is one thing with his experience, but somebody who was still, I guess, in the Army or military at the time, that helped.
I thought it was kind of funny, and maybe it was the irony. His name is Dale Dye, and his hair is dyed brown.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
He's like a whitish blonde in real life.
Yeah. I don't know if I always, whenever I see that guy, I mean, I feel like he's always had gray hair, but I know he's not had gray hair for like all of his life. But whenever you see him in a movie, it's like, it's always gray hair. So
yeah, it's like the irony of having the last name Dye.
Yeah, Dale Dye. But yeah, man, that final scene where they're, you see the aftermath of that battle, and Taylor's lying in the grass, and then
he's injured. When he wakes up, something's up with his stomach. The way he keeps he keeps like limping around and whatnot.
Yeah,
holding himself, like having one arm to his side.
Yeah.
And then you see when he's among all those dead bodies, you see one dead body crawling, but he disregards it, just goes and gets a gun, looks around, and he sees one thing that's like, okay, you got my attention.
Yeah, he's got a vendetta. He's got to make this right. The whole Elias killing, he's got to...
And everything else that he did during the platoon during the time, yeah.
Yeah, so...
And Barnes, his arrogance... And they're playing the song again, the George de La Rue song.
Yeah, the Japanese kind of piece is playing. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know he's pointing the AK at him, but you don't know if he's actually just going to kind of help him out and be like...
After what Barnes said when he turned over and sees Taylor, the first thing he says, he just arrogantly tells him, give me a medic.
Yeah.
And it's like, go on, boy. I'm like, okay. I'm like, Taylor killed him for being so arrogant.
Yeah, well, like in the scene before, Barnes tried to like kill him.
Yeah, he did. That's true. That's true too. Yeah, he said like that didn't happen just a few hours ago.
Yeah, so so Taylor's like, F this guy, like I'm gonna take him out, and he does, and I guess it's a lot of responsibility to have for Taylor, having that on his conscience, murdering one of his own. But
he fragged the staff sergeant. Yeah, I mean, no one saw, luckily, but
yeah, that's a lot to have on your conscience. But I guess an eye for an eye.
Eye for an eye, I guess. And Taylor, it's not like Taylor hasn't killed before, just not one of his own squad.
Yeah.
In that same scene, they show like who's left in the platoon after that. They show O'Neill. He hid under a body the entire night in a foxhole. He's like, "You all right, man?" "Yeah." "A bunch of fucking faggots. They all left me." And Francis, he stabbed himself just to get out of there, which was smart.
Yeah. I don't know how I felt about that. I guess he wasn't. he helped Taylor. I
He
mean,
helped Taylor. He showed that he can fight, yeah, but at the same time, I get why he would want out of there.
after that experience, I
Yeah.
mean, who wants to
To stay around, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So Taylor's pulled out of there. The APC pulls up with the Nazi memorabilia.
Yeah, what was that, by the way? I don't get why American soldiers would even have that on there for.
So I was listening to the behind the scenes commentary with Oliver Stone. He was saying quite frequently that those APC units carried Nazi memorabilia. I don't know why they did, but maybe it was some sort of I don't even want to say it's shtick, but it's
Because
some sort of I don't know,
inside joke, I guess.
joke, I guess. I don't really get it, but anyways, you see the APC pull up, and then you see these guys taking items off the dead dead NBA and
Cutting ears off.
and scalping and that kind of stuff.
And Ra, played by the late Francesco Quinn, yeah, when he's looking around, he goes with the one Vietnamese. He just opens his pocket, finds some heroin, and gets a big smile on his face.
Yeah, I think I'd be wanting heroin too after that battle.
Especially if you're a soldier who's been injured. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they walk up to Taylor, who's sitting on a log, and he's actually holding a grenade.
Yeah,
which I didn't realize in the first time I watched it, but I guess there was some improvisation there
on Sheen's part. Yeah,
and him probably wanting to kill himself after he killed Barnes.
Yeah,
because of the kind of the weight of that decision, right?
Yeah,
the weight of having a murder on your conscience.
It was improv, yeah, but Stone liked it so much he decided to keep it in the script. And check this out, in a deleted scene, I mean, not a deleted scene, but more like an extra, I guess, alternate version. Taylor doesn't kill Barnes in an alternate version, just leaves him there, just begging to be killed. And Barnes is screaming, calling him a coward. You can't do it. Come back. Come back. It's like, you want to die, don't you?
Wow, I didn't know that. They actually had him not dying in the alternate for deleted scene.
Yeah, they had an alternate take for it. It was in the 25th anniversary Blu-ray.
Okay. So we see Taylor being put on a stretcher. He's been given morphine. He's just out of it.
He's out of it, yeah, but he gets to go home because he's been injured twice, as Francis points out to him.
Yeah, and then Adagio's again playing in the background. You see Dale Dye looking at some of those impact craters from the airstrike, and he's really
torn up by it. And what's it called? Stone said that Dale Dye when that scene was filming, Dye was just reminiscing about what he saw during war. But I took it as like, him looking around, thinking to himself, these men are all my sons and I failed them.
Yeah, I mean, that was a tough call to make, having calling an airstrike on your own guys, essentially. But I guess he had to do it because it was them or us, right?
Pretty much, yeah. But they got all of them, though.
Yeah, so you see Taylor being escorted. It's just a real emotional scene, and I'll admit this. It's a tough scene for me to keep it together because you have that Adagio piece, and
it is emotional.
It is really emotional.
Even the toughest person can't help but to shed some tears. It's like an episode of This Is Us.
Yeah. I mean, you see him, and then you see him Taylor in the helicopter, saluting Raw when Raw's on the hill with his staff,
yeah,
and he's giving him the chest pump,
chest pump salute,
yeah, and he gives that ending monologue, which I think is just brilliant.
Which they also incorporated in the Adagio for Strings portion of the soundtrack, the CD soundtrack that I have. They did like two versions of Adagio for Strings at the beginning of the soundtrack and at the end, and that one, the one at the end, incorporates Taylor's monologue.
Yeah, and I'll just say a little excerpt from it here. It's like, I think now, looking back, we did not fight the enemy, we fought ourselves, and the enemy was in us. The war is over for me now, but it'll always be there for the rest of my days. That part that's so crucial. As I'm sure Elias will be fighting with Barnes for what Raw called possession of my soul. Yeah. The writing from Stone is just incredible here. It's super deep, and that last part here, be that as it may, those of us who made it out have an obligation to build again, to teach others what we know, and try with what's left of our lives to find a goodness and meaning to this life.
Yeah, that part.
And then you have the light.
The light. Taylor's like his backdrop is in the light, and then it finally goes to white, and then the caption is dedicated to the men who fought and died in the Vietnam War.
Yeah, and it's really a tribute, and I think a lot of people don't really know a lot of stuff that happened in that war.
Now they don't.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame, but this movie, and this is why I love Stone so much, is because he brings in these pieces of
like different sides of it, really, not just the war itself, but its after effects.
Yeah,
and really not just on American soldiers, but everybody.
Yeah, and and I think what he's trying to say is that we shouldn't make the same mistakes again.
Right.
You have that saying, history repeats itself, unfortunately, but what he's trying to say, what he's trying to do is try to teach us a lesson here. We should not get engaged with unnecessary wars.
I think that's the point he's trying to make, especially with the sequel film to this. Well, the spiritual sequel to this, Born on the 4th of July, with Tom Cruise's character, how he ends up in a wheelchair after his time in war.
That's another that's a tough movie to get through, but a extremely powerful piece by Oliver Stone. And I think he dives a little bit deeper into the social aspects of the Vietnam War.
Yes, he does.
The class war and was less of a democratic war as opposed to World War II, which was more of a democratic war and less of a class war.
Yeah.
So it's really a history lesson, but a life lesson as well. We shouldn't get involved in unnecessary war because the cost is humongous.
Like the tagline of the film says, the first casualty of war is innocence.
Yeah, it is. So I think we really have to, as a society, think twice before we engage in war.
Yeah, think of the consequences, social, physical.
Yeah. And I think what Stone was trying to say at the end of the film was, the enemy is within us,
Right, yeah. They spent more time fighting in the film, you see it exactly like they spent more time fighting each other.
Yeah, than actually fighting the NVA.
The enemy, yeah.
And then it's also interesting here, Stone has included some other music on the soundtrack that actually
weren't in the film.
Yeah. Otis Redding, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, and these are songs that were hits around that time, around the '60s. This one, was a blues song, and Stone had mentioned that he had heard a lot of Motown and blues when he was in Vietnam, especially in a reference to that scene in the beginning of the film where he's in the bunker with the heads and he's hearing Jefferson Airplane. He's hearing, Smokey Robinson. So we also have Aretha Franklin here, Respect, which was a pretty, I would say, controversial song because of the time.
Yeah,
the time
was,
period.
Yeah.
The 60s were a very tumultuous time in terms of social politics,
civil rights,
Vietnam War. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, and it was just kind of crazy. But this song, the lyrics reflect the racial tension and the turmoil, and I think that was a good song to include there because it kind of gives the audience some more context, I guess, and into what was going on at that time period.
Yeah, like completing the musical cipher for what was, like showing like what was reflected in that era,
Yeah, and then the next song he included was The Doors' "Hello, I Love You."
This song and the Aretha Franklin song, Respect, both of these were also included during the Vietnam War scenes in Forrest Gump, which came out 7 years later.
Yeah. And then Stone, I had mentioned Stone had discovered The Doors when he was in Vietnam, and then would go on to make that film in 1991 with Val Kilmer, and Kevin Dillon was actually in that film as well.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Stone would go on to include a lot of the same actors in some of his films down the road, The Doors being one of them, Kevin Dillon being in that film. And then I forget the other guy who played, he was in Born on the 4th of July. He was his friend, Tom Cruise's friend. He's got black hair. I'm trying to remember. He was in JFK too. I can't remember his name. He's got a very distinct face though. I think he played the organ player in The Doors.
Can't think of it right now.
I can't think of it.
right
I'm
now.
blanking on it. But
He uses multiple actors, though, definitely. He used Sheen twice for Platoon and then Wall Street a year later.
yeah, McGinley was in that too.
McGinley was in that too. Yeah, McGinley, he's a
John
real
C. McGinley.
he's a real Oliver Stone, frequent Oliver Stone. He was in Any Given Sunday.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. McGinley in this film played Sergeant O'Neill, who's just the despised character.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool how Stone does that. He includes a lot of the guys that he's worked with previously.
And a lot of the guys in Platoon, really, this was a star making vehicle for most of them, really.
Yeah, Johnny Depp that was like I think one of his early breakout films. I don't know if I'd call it a breakout film, but his early films
one of his earliest films. I mean, his breakout role was 21 Jump Street, really, which he hated.
Yeah.
But what's it called? His first film that he did was Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one.
Okay, yeah.
Forrest Whitaker was in this.
Forrest Whitaker, yeah, who's in that Biggie film that we talked about.
Who won an Oscar since then.
Yeah.
Corey Glover, the lead singer from Living Colour, he played Francis.
Yep.
The Candyman, Tony Todd.
Yeah. Then Francisco Quinn, who's Anthony Quinn's
Quinn's son, yeah, both of whom are deceased now. May they rest in peace.
Did Francisco Quinn do anything after that film?
After Platoon?
Yeah.
The last thing he did before he died was one of the voices in the third Transformers movie in 2011.
Okay.
That was his final film role.
And then you have Tom Berenger, who did just a phenomenal acting job as Staff Sergeant Bob Barnes. He was nominated for an Academy Award as Best Supporting Actor.
Him and Willem Dafoe, for Dafoe's role as Sergeant Elias, they were both nominated for Best Supporting Actor that night.
Yeah.
Neither won, though, but...
Phenomenal performances.
But they did good. It was, like I said, it was a star-making vehicle for all of them.
I thought it has to be one of Berenger's top performances. I mean,
it is. I mean, a lot of people know him. Who I grew up around know him from playing in The Substitute.
Okay, right. Yeah, I remember that movie.
I'm like, yeah, I remember that movie too, which I liked. Which was dope. It was like, dude, you ain't seen him in Platoon, have you?
Yeah, I really liked him in the Major League films. Like I thought those were hysterically funny. I don't know about you, but
him and Sheen was in that too. Yeah,
yeah, Charlie Sheen. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, 6 Degrees of Separation, and here's another one: Keith David and Sheen in Men at Work. I'm like, this is what y'all did after Vietnam, because Keith David's character, was a Vietnam War vet.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Did not know that. So yeah, and then you have a few more songs, The Rascals Groovin', which I really like. That's one of my favorites. I always remember hearing that when my dad would play the Platoon soundtrack, and I was like, I really dug that song. And then Percy Sledge, When a Man Loves a Woman.
I was only familiar with the Michael Bolton version growing up.
Yeah,
but this version was better.
Yeah, this version definitely better. Not a huge fan of Michael Bolton.
Me neither, especially after Office Space.
Yeah, but yeah, a great soundtrack. And I definitely I have to do more of a deeper dive into Stone's films, because he's done so many great ones. Like haven't finished what's that? Natural Born Killers, but that one looked pretty cool.
Did you see Savages?
No, I didn't see that.
That was a good one. I saw that on a whim back in the summer of 2012, only because I saw that Benicio del Toro was in it and Selma Hayek.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, let me see what this is about. And it's like, okay, this is actually this is action packed and makes a good point about America's marijuana policies. And then it's like written and directed by Oliver Stone. It's like, what? I ain't heard nothing by Stone in a minute since W.
Did you know that he wrote Scarface?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
He must have been snorting coke while he was writing Scarface.
I don't know. He's one of those great writer directors. It's rare. It's rare. Like Quentin Tarantino's another great writer director.
He's one. Ryan Coogler, he's now one officially. I think he's part of that club.
Yeah. But I didn't get a chance to see Snowden. I wanted to see it. Did you get a chance to see it, or
one with what's his face, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where he played the character?
Mm-hmm.
I only saw part of it, the end of it, really.
Okay.
And see the whole thing.
Did you ever see W? Or
yeah, I saw W in the theaters. Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see Nixon. That looked like it was pretty good too, as well. JFK. Have you ever seen that?
JFK was good. Yeah, I have JFK on Blu-ray.
I love that movie, man. It's so well done, and an all-star cast like Joe Pesci, Tommy Lee Jones, Kevin Costner, like
Jack Nicholson,
John Candy.
He got everybody up in it.
Yeah, he had everybody in a movie, but it was. I think it's definitely up there, and it's one of his best films ever. You know?
him and Michael Mann, they have a tendency for getting all-star casts.
Yeah.
And they're even people that become breakout stars later. Like Michael Mann, for example, in which for Ali,
Yeah.
he got like all the top black actors up in that.
He had Jamie Foxx, he had Will Smith, he had
Michael T. Williamson.
Yeah, Michael T. Williamson.
Jeffrey Wright. Good God, Mario Van Peebles.
Yeah, Mario Van Peebles played Malcolm X, right?
Yeah. Paul Rodriguez, John Voight.
John Voight, actually.
Ron Silver.
Who I think John Voight won an Academy Award for that film, right?
No, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, him and Smith.
Wow, he should have won that for
Howard Cosell. He was good. He was unrecognizable as Cosell. Sounded just like him, too.
Yeah.
And the way him and Smith played off each other is like, that's how Ali's relationship was with Cosell in real life.
Yeah. And a great soundtrack, too, which we'll have to cover.
That soundtrack was dope, man. I mean, my father, when I was in school, he had me find it for him and send it to him in the mail.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I was so good I had to buy my own.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to cover that one. Hey man, I really appreciate you being here for this episode.
I appreciate it.
Had a lot of fun again as always, and we'll have to do it again.
Oh, we will do it again.
All right, man. Take care.
Doubt. No doubt.
This podcast is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Acast, Google Music, Stitcher. So if you don't mind, please leave a review and give me some feedback. I'd really appreciate that. If you'd like to connect with me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm also on Untapped. My username is Brewtuned. This is Andrew signing off. Cheers. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and follow Roadtunes Reviews on Blogger, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And as always, thank you so much for your support.